Hey everyone, welcome back to Dan's Chess Lounge. So I heard that Vladimir Kramnik is retiring from professional chess, and that's truly sad and disappointing because it's always a pleasure and a treat to get to see Big Vlad play. A few known facts about him. Back in 2000, he won the Classical World Championship and he beat Garry Kasparov. And during that match there, he made the Berlin defense very popular. Even the GMs are still playing it. Club players are playing it now. So he used that against Garry Kasparov's E4 opening. He would play the Berlin defense. And then in 2004, Kramnik retained his title against Peter Leko, and he had to dig deep in that match there. He was going into the last game of the match, and he needed to win it, and he pulled it off. So, and then in 2006, he became the undisputed world champion by beating Veselin Topalov, and that was over the whole Toilet Gate controversy, and I'm not going to go into that because that deserves a couple videos on its own. But from 2000 to 2007, he was the man on the scene. He was dominating chess. It was him, Vishy Anand, and Garry Kasparov. Those three was kind of dominating chess during that time period, and he definitely made his mark on chess. He's known for being extremely skilled in the end game, and his biggest contributions, I would have to say, is his opening theory, his developments in his opening theory. Like I mentioned before, the Berlin defense and the Ruy Lopez. He also made some good improvements to the King's Indian defense from the white side. He actually was a big reason why Garry Kasparov stopped playing the King's Indian defense because of Kramnik's improvements to it. He revitalized the Catalan opening. He's a big English player, so he plays the English opening a lot, and he's made a lot of improvements to that. So he's just put his own little mark, his own little flair on a lot of the openings in the game today. And a little known fact about Kramnik is that later in life he developed a form of arthritis that causes him a lot of discomfort and a lot of physical pain when he's sitting at the chessboard playing these long games. So I bet you that had a lot to do with his decision to go ahead and give up professional or competitive chess. But those are the little known facts about Kramnik and his accomplishments and achievements. The game that I've decided to pick out for today is a game against our current world champion, Magnus Carlsen. And this game here was played at the 16th Amber tournament, which is not held anymore. But it was a cool tournament because they would do like speed chess and rapid chess. And they also had like a blindfold competition. So I wish they would kind of bring that back. That was a really nice tournament. But this was held in 2007 against a 17-year-old Magnus Carlsen. Kramnik was white. Let's see what happened during the game. Knight f3. Kramnik always usually starts the game with either knight f3 or either c4, or he will play like g3. Like he will disguise his beginning moves. The English opening here, c4, e6. Now you have knight c3, d5, and d4. Now this game here transposes into a Queen's Gambit declined at this moment here that Kramnik played d4. D takes c4. So Carlsen accepts the gambited pawn. And e4. Now white has a beautiful center here with the d pawns and the e pawn. And also he's threatening to capture the c4 pawn here in one tempo with his bishop. So that would develop his bishop. He'll be able to castle next. He has a beautiful center. So white's position looks great at this moment. Bishop b4. This pins the knight. And so black is threatening to capture the pawn here on e4. Bishop g5 stops that capture. b5. Now the game is actually transposing into a Botvinnik semi-Slav type of position, and those games can be wild and crazy. a4, this attempts to break up the queen side here, so white can get his pawn back. c6 strengthens that. He's trying to stop white from getting his pawn back. e5, this hits the knight here, and it indirectly threatens the queen. h6, and we're pretty much in a mainline Botvinnik semi-Slav opening, and this is one of the toughest openings to play for white and for black. E takes knight, h takes the bishop, and the pawn captures on g7, just blowing open the black king side. Hits the rook, and but the material balance has been restored, as you see. Black's king side is totally destroyed, but the positive side, the pro, is that if you look over here on the queen side, he has this big cluster of pawns over here. So if he can resolve his issues on the king side, he'll maybe be able to push these pawns and get these pawns here rolling, and that's going to be white's a difficult plan for white to stop here. You have rook g8 getting out of the attack. g3, so now white needs to develop and get his king safe, basically. So he's going to fianchetto his bishop, castle his king. Black plans on doing the same thing on the queen side. Like, he would like to develop his bishop, knight, and queen. So usually the king goes over here to the queen side. Bishop g2. Now you have c5. This exposes this long diagonal. Black's bishop is beautiful on this long diagonal here. Castle. And you have g4. Now g4 is attacking the knight, and black wants to remove the defender of this fianchetto position. He wants to remove this bishop here. And the main line move here is knight h4. And that way black can go ahead and swap off the bishop on g2. Knight captures back. And that way, once black gets castle to the queen side, he'll be able to throw the rooks on the h and g file, maybe even both rooks on the h file, and have some type of maybe an attack going on that way. Like I said, he can push the pawns over here on this side. So that's black's plan. But that wasn't played in the game, though. Instead of Kramnik playing knight to h4, he actually came up with a novelty. He played a takes b5 here. And he introduced this move here in this tournament. Some think that this was right after his world championship match with Topalov. And we think that this was all preparation from that match there that he didn't get to use. So it was very fresh in his memory, and he wanted to spring it. So there's a couple options here. You can take the knight on f3, right? You can play g takes f3, which was actually played in the game. Magnus took the sacrificed knight. Bishop takes f3. Bishop takes and queen takes, right? Hitting the rook. And then knight d7. So what is the compensation for that knight that was on f3? Well, it's like a long-term positional weakness. Where is black's king going to go? I mean, with this rook here on a1, going all the way up the board, it's going to be tough for white. I mean, it's going to be tough for black to castle on the queen side. Look at this queen that's on this long diagonal. So it's going to be tough for black to put his king in a safe position. So that's really what the sack is about. And if you think about it, it was just um, 2 pawns for the knight. So, okay, if we go back though, Carlsen did not have to take the knight. He could have just played rook takes g7, and then this would have been a much more solid way to play. The knight would have went to h4 at this point, and then Carlsen could have went ahead and took the bishop like in the main line. But Kramnik was offering a knight, so it's a difficult decision. So let's go back to the game. He played A takes B. Carlsen took the knight. And at the end of that, you have knight d7. We went over this. Now you have d takes c. So Kramnik is opening up the position even more because black's king is in the center of the board. Now you have b takes c. Now Carlsen did not have to trade pieces here, but he's hoping that Kramnik won't have enough firepower to really hurt his king. And so he wants to trade the pieces off the board and go into an endgame. He's trying to bail out, basically. So now you have knight captures the pawn on c5. So if we stop and reassess the position here, what's going on, you have white having 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 pawns to black's 4 pawns. So right now, Kramnik is only down 1 pawn for the knight sack. So with the black king in a terrible position that's very exposed. So I would say that that knight sack was, beautiful, basically. Rook f d1, it hits the queen. Queen c8. Now you have rook d6, a nice little rook lift here. Everyone knows that the rook lift is my favorite move in chess. Queen b7. Carlsen trying to trade off the queen. But nope, Kramnik declines that. And he moves to queen h5, which is a very, very strong move because it hits the knight on c5. But it also threatens to win the rook on g8 after Kramnik plays queen to h7. So that's a very strong move and very difficult to meet all the threats. Rook c8. So that reinforces the knight there on c5. Now you have rook c6. Now here, rook c6, you have a couple options. In the game, Carlsen played knight d3. But what would happen if Carlsen played rook captures rook? Then you have the queen captures back on c6. But you have this beautiful move here, queen h8. Rook takes, and then pawn captures, promoting it into a new queen. And at the end of that, white is up in exchange and a pawn, and black's king is exposed severely. So it's just a matter of time. This is a complete win for white. It's just a matter of time before Carlsen is able to trade pieces off and then win in an endgame with the pawns here. So this is just a slow death basically for black. So if we go back in the game, Carlsen played knight d3 instead. You have rook captures, queen captures. The rook now is attacking the pawn on a7, right? The captures, and Carlsen resigned here because there's no real good way to prevent the queen capturing on f7. And that's just going to lead to checkmate in the next couple of moves. If Carlsen wanted to prolong things out and do like a last minute desperation type of act, he could play knight e5, which protects that f7 square, right? But the knight is hanging. So it would be better if he takes the knight, because then he may be able to survive for a few more moves. But there's a very strong move in this position here. Pause the video if you want to try to find this strong move. I'm going to go ahead and play the move now. It's queen h8. And that's a very cute way to finish the game there. Because if the rook takes the queen, then the pawn captures, promoting to a queen, and then capturing the queen on c8. So that's just a very cute way, and brilliant way, I should say, to end the game. So it's a big farewell to Vladimir Kramnik. I really enjoyed watching his games throughout the years. I'm definitely a Kramnik fan. He's only 43 years old, so he's retiring from competitive chess, but he has a lot of life to live still. So he can do anything that he truly desires. I would imagine that he has enough financial resources to live pretty comfortably after playing at the top level for this long. So he can pretty much live how he wants and do whatever he desires. He mentioned that he would like to focus on promoting chess for children, chess education for children. So good luck to him. That's a great endeavor to pursue. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. See you next time.